What's up, revolutionaries? DC with you here on Project Sanity, a abridged edition of Project Sanity. We're back after 2 weeks off. A couple of some technical issues the last couple of weeks with our grassroots production team, but we are getting everybody back on board and bringing Project Sanity back to you. And we're back today with a very special guest and, of course, a special host co-hosting with me today, and that's Brandon Sutton. Hello, Brandon. Good day. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Dave. How you
Oh, good
doing?
evening. Yes, that's true. It is evening, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock here on the real side of America.
Well, it's of course what 5 p.m. here on the West Coast, but we are of course broadcasting at projectsanity.org as well the Benjamin Dixon Network on YouTube and on Twitch. You can catch us there as well, Project Sanity, and we are joined today by a very special guest. And Araquel, I don't know where you are, and you can probably tell us about that. But Araquel Bloss is the founder and executive director of the Progressive Independence Party, and also the founder or the co-organizer of a special event that's coming up called Occupy Inauguration. Welcome, Araquel, to Project Sanity.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Your mute is off. Excellent.
Yeah, welcome. No, let's really jump right into it. We're starting late. We're having a bridge show, so let's get right to the meat of the issue. So, Araquel, can you just tell us what the Progressive Independence Party is? 'Cause I know the idea of having a party of independence kind of is counterintuitive. So a lot of people should probably know about the philosophy behind such a party.
Absolutely. We've been building since March. It originally began when I wrote a petition and asking for Bernie Sanders, Jill Stein, the Progressive Democrats of America, and the Democratic Socialists of America to come together and form a new party for the 99%. And the petition kind of took off, and so the party was launched. And we organized it and we developed it as if it were a plan A, while we all worked really hard and volunteered for Bernie Sanders. We didn't know if we'd be needed. Of course, we hoped Bernie Sanders would be the DNC nominee. He would take over the DNC, clean house, and we maybe not be needed, but that unfortunately wasn't the case. And as time has gone on, we've continued to grow and we've continued to voice our message of unifying the left, the progressives, and ultimately to create a party of the 99%. But our goal is to have a coalition party where it's kind of parliamentary in style, where we're asking the Greens to consider joining us, the Socialist Alternatives, and other small left parties to join together under one umbrella so that we can gain 50 state ballot access and ultimately run all independents and progressive valued candidates across the country in a very hopefully competitive political party. So that's where that started.
Okay. I mean, so some of the comments I've gotten from people about the Progressive Independence Party is, why not the Green Party? Why not just join the Green Party? Why not just support the new Bernie Sanders Our Revolution movement? If your goals seem to be the same, which is to get progressive candidates elected to office regardless of whatever party affiliation they might happen to have. So why do you feel the need to start a new party, a new political party, as opposed to reform the Democrats or just join the Green Party?
Well, I have to admit, I've answered that question so many times since March. And I want to be sensitive because the reason we're asking for a coalition where everyone can keep their political identity is that we learned very early on when our first message was a message of merging into one party. But people feel very strongly about their political identification and their political affiliation. So we learned that that wasn't going to work. And that's why people aren't necessarily, obviously the Green Party has grown substantially with Bernie exiting from the presidential contest. But, there are people that won't join the Green Party because they're socialist alternative, which is also a very strong, movement, a strong party. And we have, of course, progressive independents. And we have, a whole bunch of people that aren't represented by any party. Most of our citizens don't vote. And we really want to capture more of a populist movement like Bernie, without excluding all the hard work of all the other parties that have already done so much work. But we feel like together we can grow each of them much, much bigger. So I hope that answers your question.
Oh, no, absolutely. No need to be sensitive. You can totally tell me that my questions are inane, innocuous, and completely stupid. Okay, but
your question
no.
was not stupid. Your question
It
was
was
not stupid. I want to be sensitive to the Green Party and our partners there, David Cobb and Jill Stein, and all the great people that are working with us for our upcoming action. So I don't want to say anything negative about the Green Party. It's just I think that the only way to truly topple the two-party domination of our country is to unite all the left.
Of course. So before we talk about the two-party domination, let's talk about this Occupy Inauguration event that you're having on January 20th and 21st. Can you speak a little bit about that? Like, what is the purpose? What is it? Just so our viewers know.
Absolutely. I would say this journey with the Progressive Independent Party has been just very odd. It's been an interesting, difficult journey, but when we went to Philly, when I went to, the DNC in Philly and protested outside and I camped with the Journey for Bernie folks, it was a really strange experience. And it felt like democracy had been eroded. We had many delegates walk out and speak to us, in Philly, in Franklin Park. And, it was just a very, very disappointing time. Maybe we thought that the DNC would throw us some olive branches and try to get us progressives to come over. But what we found is they just didn't even care to attempt to bring the progressives in or even fake it. So when we left the DNC, we immediately started planning Occupy Inauguration because we knew if it was that bad at the DNC National Convention that people were going to have, a hard time accepting what was to come, and that we would need to gather and try to make a plan for unity. So we've been planning this since literally we were driving home from Philly, and we're very excited to bring it to the people of this country.
So what is the goal of the movement? Like, just explain to me what do you plan on doing on July 20th and 21st? So obviously the name indicates that you plan on going to the inauguration of whoever wins the November 8th election. So what do you hope to accomplish by doing this? Because we know the media is probably not going to show this. They're probably not going to show that there is large protests with the coronation of Hillary Clinton, which I think we can assume at this point is guaranteed. And so, how many people have signed up? Like, what do you hope to accomplish? I hope rude, but like, what is the goal of occupying the inauguration?
Yeah, absolutely. The goal is to unify the left, much like the Progressive Independent Party. Even though I'm a core organizer, this action is nonpartisan. So we're all working together. And I think that it's a perfect time in U.S. history. It's a perfect time politically for us to make a stand. So what we're saying January 20th and the 21st in Washington, D.C. is that no matter who is elected, the voices of the 99% have been shut out, that we are no longer represented by the two-party system or neither candidate. So we feel it's important that we can be there no matter who's elected at this point. And we're going to make demands. We have a list of demands that we stand for, and we're going to continue to fight for on local and state levels. And secondly, the people that we are inviting that are joining, we're asking them at the end of the day to sit down with us and discuss creating this coalition party for the 99%. And that's what my goal is. If it's PIP or if it's some other kind of morphed organization, whatever the discussion may be, whatever the consensus between progressive leaders, we hope that we can announce at some point a unified front in order to take our government back and fight the oligarchy, quite frankly.
Let's talk a bit about your demands, because I have them right here. I have the list here. The first one is scrap the TPP. The second one is pass a federal $15 an hour minimum wage. Next one is free college education and the cancellation of student debt. So just the top three right there. I can say that, to play devil's advocate, someone might say that, well, those things are already in the Democratic platform. Those things are already going to be handled by the Democratic Party. We've been guaranteed that they're going to be priorities by Bernie Sanders, by Hillary Clinton. Do you feel as though just not as though like there doesn't like this is, but for this movement, the DNC's promises to these progressive promises will fall to the wayside?
Well, absolutely. I think, even as more WikiLeaks are unveiled, we can say for certain it's going to be almost impossible to hold Hillary's feet to the fire, is what Bernie says. And many of the people say that that's our job, to hold her feet to the fire, make her follow the agreement of the DNC platform. And we know now that she does not have a mode of accountability. We have seen the transcripts to Goldman Sachs. We understand that she actually is quite for open borders and free trade. So we don't trust that she will not get the TPP passed if it's not already passed in lame duck session here after November 8th. We know that Obama is going to try to squeeze that through. So no, we don't trust that that is going to be a priority. We don't feel that she's been honest. As far as the minimum wage, I don't believe that they agreed to a $15 federal minimum wage. And also, even though there's been made some progress on, local community free college, there's no talk about cancellation of student debt, lowering interest rates. I don't know about you, but I've paid off what I borrowed, and I still owe almost exactly what I borrowed. So, why the federal government is making money and profiteering off of students when it's in the best interest of our country to have educated professionals and people that can, have a global, competition with the global market, the tech market, all this stuff, is questions we all need to be asking. So absolutely, it's interesting that Hillary Clinton kind of made the national scene when she did a speech at college where she called out politicians, and she said that politics should speak to the possibility of what government can do, rather than this pragmatic approach, which obviously she's grown into a very pragmatic corporate politician. But there's still many of us that fight for what is possible through government and through politics.
Well, I'll let you know, I'm going to die in student debt. I have made amends with that. I will be dying in debt, and I will be buried in a pauper's grave. So it's fine. That's fine. We're going to open this conversation up. We'll start talking about more pressing news, current events. I will say, though, I've never been a big fan of the idea that we're going to hold someone's feet to the fire. We're going to hold Hillary Clinton's feet to the fire once we elect her. And I've had the argument made to me that no matter who we elect, whether we elected Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, we would be having to hold their feet to the fire. And my response to that was always this: if we elected Bernie Sanders, I had faith that he would fight with tooth and nail to pass the policies that he promised to pass. That me holding his feet to the fire would be less holding his feet to the fire and more providing him with the knowledge that he has public support to counteract the moneyed interest in Congress, the moneyed interest in Washington. What people are prescribing in terms of Hillary Clinton is having an antagonistic relationship with our president. They're describing the notion that we should elect someone who will only do what they say if we watch them constantly. That we cannot trust Hillary Clinton to do what she says unless we force her to. And my response to that would be, then why would we elect her? I would not marry someone who would cheat on me unless I watched them 24/7, and I would not marry somebody, or I would not put myself in that position, is what I'm trying to say. And so the notion that we should elect people who we then are forced to dedicate a large portion of our life to watching is ridiculous in my opinion. And I would say it's ridiculous in a lot of people's opinion. And that is why we have found ourselves in a situation where so many normal everyday citizens, professors, lawyers, you name it, are simply running for government because they're tired of holding people's feet to the fire. Mm-hmm. So, hey, if I have to spend 20 hours a week following behind ex-congressman, why don't I just become that congressman? Why not just make this my full-time job? Because it's already a part-time job. But, it's been a very illuminating. We've had our last episode. And so what I want to address first and foremost is the pipeline, because I know that you, Araquel, is a big issue in the past. So why don't you give us your
one sec, Brandon. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I have a question that I want to ask before we get too far away from it. Araquel, you mentioned earlier that based on the WikiLeaks, that Clinton is a big proponent of free trade and open borders. My question in particular is, are you against either of those things on principle, in particular, open borders or the free movement of labor across countries, such as we see in the EU, which is essentially what she is talking about? And frankly, the only thing I believe that Hillary and Clinton and I agree on is our preference for, if there's going to be free trade, open borders and the free movement of labor must actively be a part of that, so as to discourage companies from just going to Mexico and finding the cheapest labor possible, since labor has the ability to move.
I think that, there's always going to be concerns about maintaining, some industries here in the United States. Unions fight for that. We need to, we've lost a lot of our jobs, a lot of our industries due to that. But I believe that the majority of the left are more concerned with the other things attached to the TPP, this kind of international court.
One sec, because these two things are mutually exclusive. The TPP is something that most of us are against. I personally am against the TPP, but the TPP is not representative of what open borders are. When we talk about losing industry, we have to be particularly clear and say we lose industry when borders are closed, because then it is profitable to go to Mexico. But if the borders allow, if we're going to have free trade, you have to have free movement of labor. That's just an economic policy to help prevent that. That's actually the only remedy we would have with free trade. So we agree on the TPP, but this goes beyond that. This is something that the idea of free trade, the idea of people being able to move and cross country borders without having to have a passport, is that something that we as liberals really want to say that we're against the free movement of people to pursue their goals.
I actually, let me jump in there. And I know we have Araquel here as a guest, but I want to address what you just said right there, because I am actually not in favor wholesale of the free entry and exit of people. I'm sorry, free entry of people of labor into the country. And I'll tell you why. And this is something I brought up with the Brexit thing. Simply allowing people to move labor to move freely into your country without providing a comprehensive bucket of reforms to the labor rights movement is in no way progressive. If you
who is saying that's what we're doing?
If you were,
but who's no? But you're nitpicking at because
talking about.
So let's be very clear, because we're not taught. You're conflating two issues. You're conflating what we see with NAFTA and what we see with TPP with something that we see somewhere like Europe, where you have those regulations, where you have that across the board. And that is the idea that we're talking about. We're not talking about a new NAFTA. We're not talking about a new TPP. Both of those things would be absolutely disastrous. But we are talking about, at least from a progressive side, from a liberal side, something that many of us have espoused for many years, is in fact the movement of labor across borders, much in the style of the European Union, which has proven effective as they are dismantling most of the industrialized world, save for China's rapid growth, and that's precarious and going to be short-lived at best. But
this is Adair Schmidt, everybody, by the way. We haven't introduced Adair. So the guy that jumped in and started haranguing you over TPP is one of our contributors who was late to the green room, but is always ready with a question and a challenge. But welcome, Adair. Please continue. Just want to bring everybody up to speed as to who was talking.
I'm going to address what you just said right there. first of all, I would disagree with the fact that what we see in the EU is so vastly different than some of the prescriptions that exist within NAFTA. Insofar as there are parts of the EU that do give up a nation's sovereign right to control their own industries in favor of allowing some kind of international court. At the same time, even when Brexit was occurring, I was making the point that a large part of the English labor industry was strained by the influx of cheap labor, and without
it can't be cheap labor.
It could mean it can't be cheap labor.
I mean, because here's the thing about the EU, and here's the nice thing about something with open borders is that the labor laws are consistent across borders, that the pay rate is consistent across borders. What you see in countries like America today with things like NAFTA, with things like closed borders, is when we call a human being illegal, which is a terrible thing to begin with. That's a whole nother episode. But to say, well, hey, you're illegal and you can't really work here, but I'm willing to pay you literally pennies on the dollar to do something. That is something that you see in closed border countries. You don't see something like that if you have the regulations across the board, which is one of the things that I really admire about the EU is they are consistent. Sure, you have the High Court of the EU that can say, hey, whoa, no, guys, this thing is not acceptable throughout the EU. But that is different, and do not conflate that with the secret courts where companies can sue countries as opposed to countries suing countries. Let's not be disingenuous, Brandon, because that's...
Secret or open does not matter if there is no way to influence it. But we're going to move
countries
on.
Suing countries.
We are going to corporations suing countries is
what you see in the TPP, but that's not the same thing as the EU. So do not conflate the two. That's just bad journalism.
My larger point is this: I am not in favor of simply rigging a system, whether it be the EU or with NAFTA or the TPP, that basically funnels money out of the most vulnerable countries towards the richest countries within a region, simply to allow simply allowing free labor to move into those richer countries to be still poor in those countries.
So is this not what England, a lot of the Brexit people said was their main beef and not brown people, was that, well, we pay so much money to the EU and it just goes to countries that aren't as developed as ours. There's ways around this kind of stuff, Brandon. There's things like this. We as liberals have espoused as a group to do this properly.
There are absolutely ways around these things. And my only point is that if we're going to talk about doing these things and not simply giving a neoliberal, vague globalization, like sort of, shallow liberal definition of globalization, then the labor reforms in the country they are traveling to need to be part of the conversation from the get-go. It cannot simply be, well, we're going to have free and open movement of labor, because
are we right now planning an open borders policy right this second? No, but what we are talking about is the idea. Do we disagree, Brandon? Not really. We don't really disagree. You have a valid point. What I am saying is that we as liberals cannot sit up here and say, well, you know what? I'm going to be against people being able to move. The sovereignty of a human being to move from one place to another should be unimpeded. A. B. Let's be real about it when we talk about borders as a cultural and frankly imperialist and racist idea. Borders did not exist until after countries have been invaded, period. That's the second part of that. What you're doing is you're saying, well, I want to solve all these nitty gritty things right now. Whereas I'm saying we as liberals have already espoused this idea, and we cannot simply turn our backs on what has long been a liberal policy because someone we don't agree with is saying, well, hey, I'd like to see this kind of thing. Now, we might agree on the nitty gritty, but the idea of what she's talking about, I don't have an issue with.
Hey, Adair, let me ask you. Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Adair, okay, so let me jump in real fast. Adair, coming back to the original question, do you feel through Hillary Clinton's public and private statements that she supports the TPP or not?
So, and I will answer that question, but I want to point out that my question was not about the TPP. That is a conflation of my question. Now, as it pertains to the TPP, she does support it. She's openly admitted to supporting it, and that's been one of my larger issues with Hillary Clinton, outside of her racist, warmongering, frankly, very right-wing conservative capitalist policies. I have real issues with Hillary Clinton. But the idea of what she's talking about is not one that I have. And that's what the question is do we as liberals condemn the idea of the free movement of people? That's not something we should be in the business of saying.
Okay, but so if we believe that Obama is trying to pass it in lame duck session, and we believe that Hillary, if he doesn't succeed, that she may support it, doesn't the passage of the TPP preemptively stop the discussion that you want to have about,
Once more, I'm not seeing how you're drawing a parallel between the TPP, which is a very specific piece of legislation, which we've already established none of us are in agreement with the idea of an EU style, a hemispheric EU. I'm not seeing how those two things can be conflated, because one is not necessarily akin to the other. We do not want the TPP. We've all talked about that, but that is not what the question is about. The question is about specifically, do we as liberals, and does the Progressive Independent Party in particular, have an issue with someone espousing the free movement of labor, the free movement of individuals across the border? Is that something that we as progressives want to attach our name to? That is the question. That is the heart of the question.
I think that's a fantastic question. I don't know if that's the one being asked right now. So
but that is the question, because that's what she said.
Well,
that is what she said.
Right.
She in her email said, "My dream is to have a global hemispheric common market with the free movement of labor." That means the free movement of individuals across borders. Now, while we can nitpick at the nitty gritty, and I think we should, the question itself is, should we as liberals be against that kind of policy? Should we be against people being able to move where they want freely and unimpeded? That is the question, and should not be conflated with something like the TPP.
I do want to move on from this part of the discussion, and because ultimately I think that we're talking about, and I think we're talking about ideals versus actual what we know where she's actually talking about. We're pretending as though what she's saying is not completely, is not just the open, like the neoliberal face, the sort of progressive face of the TPP, that we're in favor of open movement of people, when really we know what the TPP is about.
But we're not talking about the TPP, and that's let me finish. I'm going to finish what I'm going to say, because I agree with you. I think that largely we should have a world where people are allowed to freely move, that we should not be so strict in the movement of people, especially as it pertains to ethnic groups, indigenous peoples who live in places like those on the Mexican border and the American-Canadian border. What I will say, though, is that we do not live in that world anymore where people are freely able to move. And we have seen over the past 50 years the systematic destruction of third world countries, of people in Latin America, of the economies of these places, that I would like to tackle first. I would like to stop engaging in these reckless neoliberal and neoconservative policies in Latin America as the first step, because ultimately we never get that far. We simply don't ever get as far as, well, let's change this. Let's flip the script and stop. Let's stop destroying Nicaragua. Let's stop destroying the economies of these places, as opposed to, well, we can just let them all in. And I mean, that sounds sort of callous, and maybe that was a bit right-wing sounding, but no, I think that the ultimate progressive idea is to engage in international socialism, to actually nation build in these things. So if we cannot make no longer engaging in neoliberal policies the first step in the free movement of labor, so that people are actually freely able to move, have an agency. We're talking about agency. We want people to be able to move freely by choice, not be forced out by drug wars, not be forced out by disinvestment from the disinvestment from random industries, not be forced out because cheap American corn is flooding the Mexican market. Then no, we don't need to have the conversation about the free movement of labor first. We need to talk about No, because you're going to give that response, and I'm not going to come here and sound like the asshole.
We have to move on to there. We can address it if there's time later. We need to move on to the debate last night. I'm sorry if I took the last word, but we're going to move on to the debate last night because this is not the TPP show. I apologize. I'm sorry, Adair. I'm really sorry. So the last debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald J. Trump was last night, and a lot of people are saying that it was Donald Trump's best debate. A lot of people are saying it was Hillary Clinton's best debate. I wanted to get your opinion on the debate, Araquel.
Oh gosh, I can't.
Did you watch the debate?
I watched some of it. I think I'm like the rest of the world. I'm like sick to my stomach. It does me no good to watch this. I thought Trump did, better. Probably the last, the last debate when he wasn't attacking so much on a personal level. I thought he seemed, rude and, the things that he normally does. I think he has some valid points. And if he were a better politician, he would, be a better contest against Hillary Clinton because of his, he agrees with progressives on, anti-TPP, getting with Russia and some of his foreign policy, if he's got foreign policy. So I'm just noticing a severe increase in anxiety every time we have one of these debates with the population. They're really sick of it.
I mean, I think the silence on certain issues is deafening. I don't think that the Podesta leaks were in any way adequately addressed last night. I don't think that a lot of issues that are on people's minds were in any way adequately addressed last night. It did become, for me, it seemed like like almost a verbatim repeat of the second debate. I heard a lot of stuff being repeated by Hillary Clinton that seemed as though it came word for word exactly from the second debate, especially as it relates to Donald J. Trump and his taxes and all these other things. And so what do you prescribe for the voter? I would say, what is the position of the Progressive Independence Party? Because I know a lot of people are sort of swallowing their pride and saying, well, I'm going to vote for Clinton because I want to, prevent Trump from getting into office, or I want to burn down the whole system by electing Trump. So what is your position on this sort of thing?
Well, the official position of the Progressive Independent Party is we are not endorsing anybody for the President of the United States this round. We feel that, Democrats, progressives, independents have kind of been through enough. And, when Bernie pulled out and endorsed Hillary Clinton, it was heartbreaking for many people. And we just don't want, our goal is to unite. And we always fall back on that when the question of how we should proceed, because we still have a lot of work to convince a lot of groups to unite with us. So we decided not to endorse in an effort to put less pressure and less judgment on the people that feel they need to vote for Hillary Clinton, that could, vote for her, but then still want a different option in the future. So we didn't want to further disenfranchise. But I also live stream on the PIP main page, and I write a lot of commentary on my personal Facebook page, and everyone knows my standing that I will not vote for Hillary Clinton. I believe she's a very, very dangerous option. I believe she will very likely attempt to provoke World War III with Russia, and I can't be any part of that. So I do plan on voting for Jill Stein.
That's really interesting. I think that one of the big questions that came up last night that Hillary Clinton dodged and when we talked about on the post-debate show was the no-fly zone over Syria. The idea that Hillary Clinton is, talking about instilling a no-fly zone over Syria, which would or might involve shooting down Russian planes that would attempt to breach that no-fly zone. So when you say that she is trying to instigate World War III, or that might instigate World War III, do you feel like that's an actual possibility? Because I know that's something that Jill Stein has been saying online to the aggrievement of certain individuals. So do you feel like that is an actual possibility, or that maybe Clinton is just grandstanding to, bolster up her war hawk bona fides?
No, I absolutely don't think she's grandstanding. I think she, it was her, initiative to topple, Libya. We've got, we are a regime toppling country at this point. We have bombed 7 Muslim nations since 9/11. I do not believe that the United States seems to want to exit Syria without toppling Assad, and I don't think that Russia will allow that without a fight. We shouldn't be in Syria at all. It's against international law. Assad is the legitimate government of Syria, and we don't know why we're there except for, a pipeline that needs to go through there. So I'm really concerned that her foreign policies has been destructive. We've left the entire region unstable, and now we know through WikiLeaks that she knows that Saudi Arabia and Qatar fund ISIL, and she takes money from them, and we sell them weapons. So I think that we need to begin to have the conversation about honesty in our government and who is the enemy if we're providing weapons to those folks that are in fact arming the terrorists and are in fact funding them. So I think the American people need to be far more aware than they are, because the mass media is not doing their job in uncovering these truths of who we're actually supporting and why. Why are we bombing Yemen now? Why are we fueling the jets for Saudi? Why are we doing all of these things? I mean, it's really a sad state, and I think that we should vote in consideration of what we're doing globally. We are no longer, we're a global community now, and we need to absolutely consider the consequence on our vote to the people of the world. They think that Aleppo has maybe 2 months left, will be gone. It will be, So yeah, I think we need to raise consciousness in the global world, our human community. Absolutely.
So Adair, did you watch the debate? What'd you think of it?
I didn't watch the debate. I didn't watch the debate for the reason that a lot of people didn't watch the debate, because it's a bunch of grandstanding, and quite frankly, none of the positions that are espoused at the debate are going to be things that we actually see happening. We touched on it, and Araquel touched on it from a different perspective than I'm going to touch on it, and that is Syria and the Middle East in general. Here's the thing about both candidates that people like to ignore. We paint Donald Trump, and rightfully so, as an out-and-out racist, but there is a incredible amount of cognitive dissonance from especially on the left, to call Hillary Clinton a racist. A duck is a duck, period. Clinton and her policies have been racist. Our policies in the Middle East have done nothing but destabilize countries. Again, as I mentioned earlier, borders tend to have just been these invisible lines drawn in the sands by Western white folks coming in and taking resources from other countries. You saw that in the Middle East. You saw it in a vast amount of destabilization because Bush and Cheney were like, there's oil and we can profit off of this. America has become, we've always been war profiteers. You mentioned toppling regimes, Araquel. We've tried to off Castro. There was a spat of coups in Latin America and South America in the 60s and 70s, I want to say, where we installed military regimes all the time. Anytime it was right-leaning or right-of-center regimes, we came in and left of center or socialist communist regimes, we came in and installed a right-wing dictator. That's what America has done. I don't see any of that changing with Hillary Clinton. I just see this incredible amount of cognitive dissonance. I don't necessarily think that we're going to have World War III. I don't think that just based on Congress, who we have in Congress, she would get the permission to do a lot of what she wants to do in places like Syria, where her no-fly zone, I don't think would be something that we could get through. She might be able to do it through the powers of the president, since she would be the commander-in-chief of the military. But frankly, I'm blown out of debates. I'm blown out of watching this dog and pony show, of watching just the smugness of the political elite, of the wealthy and ruling class in America, act like they can just do what they want. They can give people, and I can't remember the phrase in Latin, but bread and circus. That's all this is. Clinton is the bread. She's, it's substantive. It's something that gives people that like to profess themselves to be intellectuals and compassionate liberals to chew on and think about and say, well, I can still feel good about this because she's worse. She's better than the circus over here, which is just right-wing, racist, out and out what America's underbelly really looks like. And I wouldn't even say America's underbelly. I'd just say America, period.
Let me just say, Adair made the right decision by not watching the debate. I was upset due to personal issues before I watched the debate, and after the debate, I was just like, well, it's trying to play Johnny Cash's cover of Hurt and just cry in the dark for a little bit, because it's gotten to the point where it's no longer. Donald Trump was funny for a little bit. Donald Trump was definitely funny during the Republican debates, but now it's become sad because we see what the lesser of two evil politics ultimately ends up as, in my opinion. I think a lot of people are treating Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, this sort of record low favorability with everybody, as some kind of anomaly. This is an anomaly. Like we can get out of this hole we've dug ourselves into, and I really don't see it happening. I see 2020 it being Clinton versus Cruz, and everyone who failed to hold her feet to the fire in 2016 are going to be failing to hold her feet to the fire in 2020 in fear of Cruz, and then 24 it'll be Clinton 3.0 or Obama 3.0 rather, versus some other Republican, and we'll just keep trudging down this line of, well, we're making incremental change in favor of some grand left policy that no one can seem to articulate. In my opinion, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Okay, Araquel, please.
Sorry, I was going to say, and to that point, when people tell me, well, you have to be reasonable, you should vote for Hillary Clinton, we got Supreme Court justices to nominate and so forth. Well, first, John McCain came out very publicly last week and said that they will absolutely block any Supreme Court justices she tries to nominate. So we have that. But if people of America really want me to vote strategically, I would vote for Trump, because what happens, we get Hillary Clinton in there. She's going to hold the White House for maybe a year. It's going to be the Clinton machine picking the next person. We're going to see more election fraud. We're going to see more corruption, more lies, more secrecy. And when are we going to take our country back? It won't be 2020. It's going to be very difficult once we hand over the reins to Hillary Clinton to, the next, statistically, she's already way ahead of statistics for being a third term for a Democrat. I don't think that's happened since 1830 something that we've had, a Democrat follow a two-term Democrat. So most likely the next president's going to be a Republican. And so, progressives, we're going to have to work hard to have any kind of executive branch representation in our, until I'm an old woman. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that it can be said that, we have had Democrats in office every other presidency since a while, but we haven't had a progressive, anyone who's represented democratic ideals, rather traditional democratic ideals, in over 30 years since Reagan. We haven't had someone, since Carter really, representing democratic ideals. Before I let Adair in, I just want to make a comment about the Supreme Court argument, because that is one of my least favorite arguments I hear people make, because it automatically normalizes the idea that we should have a Congress that is just completely inactive. And that is one of the most disingenuous arguments I've ever heard, that, oh, well, the reason we have to have a Democratic in office is because Congress is unable to legislate on anything that might be considered a viable social issue, whether it be gay marriage or gun control or the Voting Rights Act. So we have to have an activist Supreme Court to reverse all of these things. And I refuse to accept the fact that Congress should not be held to account for the fact that they are completely inactive, and they have been for a very long time, except on corporate issues. They are completely willing to move on issues of corporations and the national security state and the military and the prison industrial complex. But when it comes to social issues, whether it be expanding the rights of women who are seeking abortions or voting rights, they just can't seem to get that stuff done. So I'm going to let Adair, I know he wants to say something.
I've been listening. I've listened to both of your positions on this, and I'm not sure how I feel about this election. As I've said before, for those of you who've already watched, you know my position on this. Those of you who are just now watching, I personally am going to be voting for Joe Stein this election because I could not stomach either of the other two choices. I refuse to vote for a racist. But if we're going to see real change, and I've said this before as well, it has to be done from the bottom up. We can't have trickle down, liberal policies. You have to vote at the local elections. You have to vote your city councils, your school boards, those folks. Those are going to be the people that actually change your day-to-day life. But as it pertains to the presidency and people voting for Trump, and that's something I've heard a lot of liberals say, well, I'll just vote for Trump out of spite or some other reason. And I've heard a lot of rebuttals to it, and I've heard a lot of reasons for it. And frankly, I'm on the fence about how I feel about, the Trump question, the idea that, well, what if Trump is voted for? And the biggest concern I have with Donald Trump, other than he's, again, a flagrant racist and has no business anywhere near politics, then again, neither does Hillary Clinton, in my opinion, is that Donald Trump represents such a normalization of radical racism, as we call it in this country right now. Clinton represents such a normalization of liberal racism, right? I mean, it's a rock and a hard place. It's the out and out racist, the one who's going to call you the N-word to your face, and the one who's going to slyly clutch her purse tighter and give you that really fake half-hearted smile as she walks by you. And I'm sick and tired of this presidential election. I'm sick and tired of listening to neoliberal policies be, thrown about. I'm sick and tired of people telling me, well, Trump tells it like it is. No, he doesn't. Trump tells it like a racist. Hillary Clinton doesn't give you any actual hope for the future. And if you tell me Hillary Clinton makes you hopeful for the future, and your reasoning is anything other than, well, she's a woman running for president, just like I said back in 2008 when Barack Obama was running for president, Barack Obama did not give me any other hope other than the fact that he was a black man running for president. Period. That's it. They represent the same political class. They work with the same people. They are in the same doggone circles. And politics is a small community. They are all right of center. We're not getting any real change. So enact change from the bottom up.
To finalize this, I do want to address the leaks in a little bit of detail because I'm frankly disgusted by what we found out about what was going on during the campaign season. I mean, I was disgusted back when Gucci for 2.0 came out.
Gucci for 2000.
That still sounds like a Gucci Mane album to me. That sounds like a Gucci Mane album, and I swore to God it was for like the first 2 weeks. I'm not very smart, but no. So. But what I will say, I think voting for Trump from my position is like, it's too cute for me. Like I can understand that strategy, but it's too cute. It's too cute by half for me. But to consider Hillary Clinton incremental change is nonsense. For me, any incremental change that's not an incremental step forward towards a destabilization of the two-party system, I frankly don't care if people think like I do. I don't want everyone to think like I do. I just want to have an income where everyone feels free to share their thoughts openly and have them challenged. I think Trump is an example of what happens when you don't have that. When you just basically shuttle people into the shadows and hope that they go away, even though you've kept material conditions that keep them alive. And we basically shuttled the racists to the shadows, said racism was over, and never addressed the economic conditions that cause racism to flourish.
Well, it's not just economics. America has always been racist. Or it was founded on racist principles, racist ideology. It's our lack of willingness to confront what we as America and as Americans actually are representing and espousing. Absolutely. That I think is the first step to getting rid of that.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you're interested in that conversation, I would say go back to the last Black Lives Matter panel and I really do know exactly how racism in America are just inextricable from one another in terms of their origins. So we only have about 5 minutes left. So I do want to, I just want to touch on these Podesta leaks that have been coming out of WikiLeaks for the past 2 weeks or so now. And I just want to out in the beginning, condemn them. I don't care if Russia did it. I think that if Russia did do it, we owe them a thanks in this case, because when Americans get involved in the political system of other countries to make it more democratic, we call it, that's American exceptional. That's America doing what America should do. If Russia did in fact give this information to WikiLeaks, basically wholesale free, then all they've done is made the American democracy more democratic, giving people more information to make their decision on. And I think that is a worthwhile thing to engage with. However, I do want to separate out the sort of origins of these leaks from their contents, and I only really want to discuss the contents right now and like what we found out. I hope everyone's okay with that. If anyone has a divergent opinion from the fact that no matter where these leaks came from, they are valuable to the American populace to know, feel free to expand on that. But I just want to get Araquel's opinion on what we have found out from the leaks, and also Adair's before we close it out. So Araquel, take it off.
Well, I find them very interesting, but I think a lot of people in the burning crack community especially aren't surprised. I think it validates a lot of what we have felt and have seen, what we've been saying about the corporate media, blocking out the truth, not reporting accurately. So what I'm more worried about is the sense that people have become apathetic, and they say, oh, that's just part of politics. And I'm very sad and discouraged by the predominance of public opinion to not read them, not care, think that it's no big deal. And I feel that any other election, if Trump wasn't in the election, that these would be a huge deal. But we're seeing these flaws and people are accepting them. And I think it's very disheartening for me to see that.
I agree. And Adair, why don't you take the last word on this, and we'll call it an evening after, letting transition into the Benjamin Dixon show. I'll make up to you for cutting you off with the TPP. So take the last word on the.
As we'll continue that conversation on our podcast, which we will be recording this Saturday, Two Black Dudes, so make sure you check it out. But I'd have to echo a lot of what Araquel said. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance. People refuse to read the leaks, refuse to read the emails, and would instead find solace in the snarky, late night talk show hosts, the Daily Shows of the world, the John Olivers of the world. While I think they do a valuable service, I think here they're doing the Americans a disservice by kind of painting the leaks as just kind of, oh, well, whatever. The worst thing she said is she wanted an EU for the Northern Hemisphere, blah, blah, blah. Read them. Take the time, read them, and let it sit with you. Let the disgust and the anger and just sit with you and experience that, feel that, because the elections, they've been garbage this year. The voice of the people was not accepted, not recognized, not wanted. You see evidence of collusion with the media. You see evidence of collusion with gigantic donors, and you see the fact that Hillary Clinton, quite frankly, does not give a shit what you think, especially if you're an activist. So please feel free to join me and the rest of all of the Bernie folks in the, quote, bucket of losers.
It's bucket of deplorables, and I admit that I am a scumbag, but still not as big of a scumbag as James O'Keefe is, who is a little
the Trump people are deplorable.
I don't know.
Trump people are deplorable. We're losers and basement dwellers. We're going to call it an evening, guys. Right.
Why don't you, Araquel, since you're the guest, tell people where they can keep up with you, and then we'll sign off.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in finding more or joining our cause to unite the progressive left in a new coalition-based party, please go to pipunite.org. And if you're interested in joining us for Occupy Inauguration, which I highly recommend, it's going to be a moving, a very important event, please go to occupyinauguration.org and sign up, volunteer, find us on Facebook. And I appreciate Brandon having me on your show. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I'm sorry for arguing in front of you, and I'm sorry for arguing in front of our guests. It's like being in the back of a car with your parents on a road trip and just feeling entirely awkward as they talk about how no one knows where they're going. But you make sure you subscribe, comment, like, dislike to the Benjamin Dixon Show channel, and also Project Sanity. Have a good night, everyone. It's been a pleasure.